Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. This is the weekly Delta fishing report for the week of October 20th. We're going to start off with some river news, and there's not a whole lot of river news, but I would like to remind everybody about the food allergy kayak bass fishing tournament coming up. That's going to be at Pardee Reservoir October 29th. Remember, this is a tournament where all the proceeds are going to Stanford University. They're going to the branch that works with children that have these severe food allergy problems, and I know it's going to be a great tournament. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be out there, and I hope to talk to all you guys that are fishing that food allergy bass fishing tournament coming up October 29th, Pardee Reservoir. Okay, let's get into river conditions. It's Wednesday. I was out this morning. I had 65 degree water temperature. The water temperatures are dropping. I just want to give you a little teaser for later in the program. I'm going to talk about some information having to do with water temperature that I got from Alan Fong earlier this week, and it was surprising to me, and I think it may be surprising to some of you folks out there, but it is very encouraging. So that's a teaser for what's going to come up on the largemouth bass section of the report. So water temperature around 65 degrees. Clarity is still about 4 to 6 feet. Might be a little more, a little less, depending on where you are. Boat traffic the last couple weeks has been, both from bass fishing, quite a bit of pressure due to the tournaments going on and probably the weather and everybody wanting to get out, for their last summer fishing trips. So quite a bit of bass fishing pressure, but also a lot of boating pressure, a lot of big cruisers out here. So one of the things that I've seen in the last week or so, a lot of the hyacinth, the floating vegetation, is starting to break up and move down the river. Some of that is due to the spraying and it's dying off and it's getting pushed down the river. Some of it is just naturally, we're past those summer months where it's really vigorously growing. It's starting to cut itself back. It's not growing as fast as it was. So it's breaking up and starting to move down the river. As soon as we get some rain or maybe some bigger tides come here, I think we're going to see a big push of that stuff moving out the river. And for those of you who may not be on the river a lot, I think the surface vegetation and especially the hyacinth, the state has done a really good job at keeping that in check. Our problem right now is the subsurface vegetation, the elodea, the coontail, everything that grows underwater. That's getting to be a problem, and it's really a tougher problem to fish around than the floating vegetation. But that's here nor there, just what I'm seeing out here on the river. So river conditions are real stable, and hopefully that fall bite is going to kick in. And generally speaking, both the stripers and the largemouth bass this week have picked up. Stripers a whole lot, largemouth just very slightly. So with that, let's talk about stripers. They're in the system. They've been in the system for a couple weeks, but they're coming in daily. I still believe, from reports that I get from my son and other people that I know that are fishing out farther, we're talking about from Carquinez Straits, Napa River system, down to Pittsburgh. There's a lot of fish down that way, and they're coming this way. So I think we're going to have a great striper year, and those fish are still going to be flooding in the system. And when we get in here, it's going to be a crime scene here on the Delta. People are catching fish now, both on the San Joaquin and the Sacramento side. I talked to Alan Fong. Alan generally fishes the Sacramento, but he was on the San Joaquin side, fishing basically from the Sacramento River. Maybe we'll just call it down the channel, down to Frank's Track area. And Alan's key to success for bigger fish was throwing top water walking baits in 1 to 3 feet of water. He's fishing flats. That's where the big fish are. Alan said when he went to fish traps and smaller baits, he was getting a lot of bites, but they were the runts, a lot of shakers and a lot of just keeper size fish. So that was Alan's key to success when it comes to striper fishing. I talked to Jeff Suhu, and Jeff has been out on the weekends and he has been doing very well. He's telling me he has no problem going through 50 mud suckers in a day. Now he's fishing a little deeper and he's not catching the bigger fish. Now you have to remember, Jeff is a guide He's out here trying to get his clients fish, and they've been getting a lot of action, but they're more the schoolie size from, we'll say, 20 to 25 inch fish, but lots of action. Jeff is working between 8 and 20 feet of water, so when he goes out and finds his points or his ledges or his spots, he's starting in 8 feet of water. He's moving out to 20 feet and just zigzagging around up and down the banks until he finds the fish. Then he's dropping straight down with live mudsuckers, and they have been on a ferocious bite. So all in all, it's looking good. I know the reports that I'm getting from the anglers out here, the guys that are throwing the big glide baits and the topwaters, are getting a very good quality fish. A lot of teeners and a lot of fish in that 15 to 20 pound class. That's a good size fish out here. It's not 60 size fish, but the striper fishing right now is looking very good, and I'm just hoping that the next couple of weeks, you know, when these fish really start to come in the system, they're flooded in here, everybody's going to have a good time. So get your striper rods out. If you don't already have them, get out there and do some striper fishing. With that, we will we'll go on to largemouth bass. Before I get into the tournaments or the reports, as I did that report last week, Wednesday, and I edited it, put it up, I started getting reports that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday seemed to be really good days to fish. Saturday was pretty good, and since then it's kind of flattened out, and you know, through the week. So the end of last week, very good. The beginning of this week, not so good. And the not only the reports that I got show that, but if you look at the tournament results, there was a NorCal tournament Saturday, I think it was, and it had 26 pounds to win it. The hook, line, and sinker, that had, I think, 22 pounds to win it. Those are good sacks. Here's the problem. Where you get in the middle of the pack and where most of the guys are, they're under 10 pounds. Generally on the Delta, those weights should be around 12, 13 pounds. They're not there. They're down 4, 5, 6 pounds from what they should be. You know, historically, if you had 14, 15, 16 pounds, you're not expecting to cash a check. You've got 15 or 16 pounds now, you're probably, you know, you better weigh those fish in because you got a good chance of cashing a check. So I talked to several guys that were out here. I was out this weekend. I talked to several guys that were fishing tournaments, and I talked to a lot of weekend anglers at the dock, and the main word that I hear is grind. Everybody is still grinding out here. The guys that are catching bigger fish, and I got a lot of picks this week from guys with nice fish, and I got a lot of reports that guys are catching nice fish, but they're not consistently catching. It's one fish. Maybe they'll get a 5 or 6 pound fish and maybe a 3 pound fish. Those two fish will be in a 15 or 20 minute bite window. They're in the right spot at the right time, and the rest of the day is a grind, and that is right down, you know, that is what everybody is saying. So what were guys catching them on last week? I'll talk about what Rob from the Bass Hole relayed to me, and he was in that hook, line, and sinker tournament. Him and his partner were third, and they had just right at 20 pounds, just under 20 pounds, I think 19.8 or something. Had a good bag of fish, and they did their damage catching their fish on white spinnerbaits and chatterbaits. And that's a key, because when I talked to Alan, when he was not fishing stripers last week, he was fishing largemouth. He also said that he was getting his fish on white spinnerbaits. Now, I haven't been throwing spinnerbaits. I've been throwing jerkbaits, and that's probably been my key bait the last couple of weeks. But I guarantee you, I'm going to be throwing some white spinnerbaits this week. So that was Rob and Alan's keys for success this last week. I know there are guys punching out here, and they're still getting big fish punching. So tournament weights down, still big fish coming in the top 3. Spinnerbaits punching this last week. What can we expect this next week? We can expect tides that are similar to what we had last week. It's going to be a grind. It's not worth coming out, getting up at 4 in the morning and fishing AM or PM right till dark. I have had a few reports where guys are catching fish. What I have found the last couple of weeks, you get up at 4 in the morning for a 20-minute bite window, and you catch from 3 to 6 or 7 fish, and most of those fish are just under 2 pounds or just over 2 pounds. They're not the big toads that are coming up in the mornings and the evenings. So with that, again, I can't suggest coming out super early. The tides are important, and there has been a low incoming tide has been a good bite. High outgo is always pretty good, but don't forget that low incoming tide. That has been what a lot of people have been doing their damage on. It's not an all day, all through the tide. It's usually about maybe the first 2 hours of the tide, and if you're in the right spot at the right time, it's going to be a short bite window, probably less than a half an hour, and that's what's going to make your day out here. So with that in mind, I mean, I can't give you a great prognosis, but let's think about this. When I talked to Alan Fong, everybody's waiting for that fall bite. When I talked to Alan, I told him that I was getting about 65-degree temperatures out here, and that's when I start thinking fall. Alan says no way for him, and he's got 50 or 60 years of experience out here. He says he's waiting for that water to get under 60 degrees, and that's going to trigger the fall bite. That's important. When Alan says something like that, I'm listening and I'm looking at my electronics a lot closer, and I'm going to wait till that water gets under 60 degrees, and I'm going to be fishing hard right on through that, till it gets down to under 50, and we'll see what happens then. But hopefully we're going to get that fall bite still coming, so when it does, I'll let you guys know. What can you do to be successful this next week? All I can say is put in as much time as you can. Don't get out here early. Don't get out here, don't think you have to stay late. But if you can stay from 9 o'clock in the morning to 4:30 or 5 and fish through those tides, you're probably going to hit a bite window. Now, the tips of the week are not coming from me. If they, for me, my best fishing has been on a jerkbait offshore in about, I'll say 6 to 12 feet of water. But I want to relay a couple of tips. One of them, we'll just go over what Rob and Alan said. They're fishing white spinnerbaits. I guarantee you I'm going to have a white spinnerbait on this week. That's the first tip of the week. The second tip of the week is going to come from Kenny Vang, the bank angler that I had on a couple weeks ago talking about bank fishing. Both Kenny and his brother Kevin have been fishing about 4 days a week out here, and they're getting them on jerkbaits. But Kenny's tip was they're seeing a lot of fish caught on jerkbaits that have crawdads in their gullet. So what he's done is he switched over to a crawdad colored jerkbait, which a lot of guys don't throw out here. It's usually, something that's imitating a shad or something, a little more flashy. But Kenny's suggestion was when you see fish eating crayfish, maybe you catch one on a worm or something, you see a crayfish in their gullet or you feel one in their belly, don't be afraid to fish an erratic bait like a jerk bait, but put it in crawdad color, and that could be the key to covering more water in a shorter period of time. So rather than maybe throwing a worm or a creature bait and not covering a lot of water, remember Kenny's fishing from the bank, so he has to really cover the water that he's fishing in front of him. And his key was to use a crawdad colored jerkbait. So thanks, Kenny, for that tip, and hopefully it helps some of you guys out there this week. A lot of guys aren't throwing that color, so just be aware of that. So guys, if you enjoyed this report and you've gotten anything out of it, make sure you hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe, and hopefully this fall bite, the water temperature declining, is going to continue to kick up the largemouth bass. Stripers are looking good right now, and hopefully we'll have a better report for you next week. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the water.